The air over the Chebar River was heavy with the scent of damp reeds and the quiet murmur of exiled voices. Ezekiel, son of Buzi, sat among the displaced Israelites, his eyes fixed on the slow current winding through the Babylonian plain. The year was around 593 BC, and Jerusalem was far away, its temple defiled, its people scattered. The sun hung low in the sky, turning the water to molten bronze. All around, the exiles tried to make sense of their new lives under foreign rule. Ezekiel, a priest by birth, had been stripped of his place at the altar. Babylon's ziggurats loomed in the distance, monuments to gods he did not serve. It was here, on this unremarkable riverbank, that the quiet monotony shattered. The horizon darkened, not with storm clouds, but with something far stranger. A wind rose from the north, cold, fierce, and swirling with dust, carrying with it the sound of a rushing tempest. The reeds bent under its force, and Ezekiel's heart began to pound. Something was coming. The storm was unlike any earthly squall. It glowed from within, a radiance like polished metal catching fire. Within the roiling cloud, Ezekiel saw flashes of lightning that did not fade, as if they were frozen in time. From the heart of the whirlwind came a brilliance he could not look at directly, a brightness like glowing metal in the midst of fire, as he would later describe it. But it wasn't just light. Shapes began to emerge, moving with precision inside the storm, as though the cloud was not random chaos but a veil for something deliberate. The roaring grew louder, a sound like many waters crashing together, yet beneath it pulsed an ordered rhythm, almost mechanical in its perfection. In that moment, Ezekiel knew this was no ordinary vision. It was an encounter with the divine. As the whirlwind parted, Ezekiel saw them clearly. 4 living beings emerged, standing in perfect symmetry, each distinct yet bound in unity. Each had the form of a human body, but their faces defied earthly order. Each head carried 4 visages, a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. The man's face spoke of wisdom, the lion of kingship, the ox of service, the eagle of swiftness. Together, they formed a tapestry of creation's fullness. Their legs were straight, their feet like those of a calf, glowing like burnished bronze. Under their outstretched wings, human hands worked and moved with purpose. The creatures moved without turning. They advanced in any direction without shifting their faces, guided by an unseen will. Fire danced between them, darting back and forth like living embers. In the glow of that fire, Ezekiel felt both awe and a terror that rooted him to the ground. As Ezekiel's gaze moved downward, he saw what bore these beings, immense wheels, one beside each creature. But these were no simple chariots of wood and bronze. Each wheel was intersected by another, forming a wheel within a wheel. The rims gleamed like precious stone, and their edges were covered in countless eyes, watchful, unblinking, alive. When the creatures moved, the wheels moved with them. When they rose, the wheels rose as well. There was no turning, no hesitation, only perfect synchronization. The design was alien to anything Ezekiel had ever known. To his eyes, it was as though the very laws of motion bent to serve this vision. It was a chariot not of man's making, but of heaven's. Centuries later, Jewish mystics would call this vision the Merkabah, the divine chariot of God. In ancient Israel, the chariot was the pinnacle of power, a war machine reserved for kings. To envision God riding such a vehicle was to proclaim him as the supreme ruler of all realms, earthly and heavenly alike. Babylon, where Ezekiel now stood, was a land saturated with celestial imagery. Winged beings guarded palace gates. Their temples housed statues of hybrid creatures with human and animal features. But Ezekiel's vision was no idol. It was alive, radiant, and commanded by the living God. In a land of many gods, this vision spoke in a language both the Israelites and their captors could understand. Yahweh was not defeated by exile. He traveled even into foreign lands. Above the heads of the four living creatures stretched an expanse that shone like crystal, vast, flawless, and awe-inspiring. The wings of the beings beat with a sound like roaring waters, like the voice of the Almighty. Yet, when they stood still, they lowered their wings in solemn silence. This crystal-like dome was not just a roof. It was a barrier between the realm of the creatures and something higher still. It shimmered like ice, yet radiated warmth, as though it were infused with living light. In ancient cosmology, such a firmament separated heaven from earth, a reminder that even in visions, there were levels of divine presence, thresholds one could not cross without permission. Through the transparent expanse, Ezekiel saw the pinnacle of the vision, a throne of sapphire radiating majesty. Upon it sat a figure in human form, yet far greater than any man. From the waist up, the being glowed like molten metal. From the waist down, it blazed like fire. Around him was a radiance like a rainbow after a storm, a sign of covenant and mercy, even in the midst of overwhelming power. Ezekiel knew at once he was in the presence of the Kavod Adonai, the glory of the Lord. This was no angelic messenger, no symbolic dream. This was a direct encounter with the divine King himself. The Hebrew word kavod means glory, but also weight. Ezekiel felt that weight press upon him, not as a burden, but as an unshakable reality. It was the tangible presence of the one who formed the heavens and the earth. Faced with such majesty, Ezekiel fell to his face. This was the only response possible before the Creator, whose throne was above the crystal sea, whose chariot moved on wheels of fire and eyes. For the exiles beside the river, this vision would become more than a tale. It was proof that God's glory was not confined to the temple in Jerusalem. His throne moved, his chariot traveled, and his covenant remained, even in Babylon. As Ezekiel lay in the dust, a voice spoke from the throne. It called him Son of Man, and sent him to speak to the rebellious house of Israel. His message would not be easy. It would challenge kings, priests, and people alike. The vision was not for wonder alone. It was the commissioning of a prophet. The living creatures, the wheels, the throne, all were part of the royal court of heaven, assembled to witness the sending of God's messenger. The scroll Ezekiel would later see and eat, written on both sides with words of lamentation and woe, was born from this moment of awe. Ezekiel's vision did not remain in the dusty annals of exile. Centuries later, early Jewish mystics would explore it in the mystical tradition of Merkabah mysticism, seeking to ascend spiritually through contemplation of the chariot's form. In Christian theology, echoes of Ezekiel's vision appear in the book of Revelation, where John describes 4 living creatures around God's throne, beings strikingly similar to those Ezekiel saw. Even in modern times, the imagery has sparked fascination beyond theology. Some have speculated, controversially, that the wheels within wheels might be descriptions of advanced technology or extraterrestrial craft. But within its ancient context, the vision remains a proclamation of divine sovereignty. The land where Ezekiel stood was itself steeped in celestial lore. The Babylonians charted the stars with mathematical precision, believing the heavens influenced earthly affairs. To witness a vision that combined cosmic imagery, hybrid beings, and a moving throne was to see a declaration of power that rivaled and surpassed Babylon's own deities. The message was clear. The God of Israel was not a regional deity tied to a single city. He was the Lord of the heavens, commanding beings and structures beyond human comprehension. Long after the dust of Babylon settled, Ezekiel's vision still stirred the hearts of those who read it. For the exiles, it was a reminder that God had not abandoned them. For later generations, it was a glimpse into the hidden court of heaven. On the banks of the Chebar River, one man saw the sky open and the glory of the Lord descend, not to destroy, but to call, to commission, and to remind his people that his presence was not bound by walls or borders. And so, across centuries, Ezekiel's vision remains what it was on that first day. A moment when the unseen realm broke through, when heaven's chariot touched the earth, and when one prophet was forever changed by what he saw in the sky. You've just uncovered another hidden chapter of history with animated Bible mysteries. If you enjoyed this journey, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story where the Bible's words, ancient legends, and divine mysteries come together. Until next time, heaven holds the secrets. Never stop searching.